Hey, what's up, Street Gods? It's Eric from the Eric Street Photography blog. So today I wanted to give you guys some practical tips and suggestions in terms of composition. So the first principle I want to cover with you guys is this concept of the golden rectangle. And basically, if I take you guys through the concept, let me just do it with you guys real quick. So the first thing you want to do is just, let's say you just set a black background. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw out our frame. So let's assume this is our frame. The first thing you want to do is create a diagonal line from the bottom left corner to the top right corner, like A. And then what you do afterwards is you create a perpendicular line. So we guys all might remember, fun geometry class. All these lines here should be 90-degree angles. And the eye is drawn to this section here called, yeah, you guessed it, the eye. The reason we want to create diagonal compositions in our photography is it's much more engaging, it's much more dynamic and interesting. So to give you guys some examples, this is a picture of Cindy. So if you look at this picture, notice how her head is actually tilted. Her head isn't vertical like yay. Rather, you could see how her head is tilted at a diagonal. And even if we created the diagonal composition, so assuming you drew a line from the bottom left corner to the top right corner, and drew another perpendicular line here, now you could kind of see, similarly, we've created the 90-degree golden rectangle, and your eyes are, essentially drawn to this point here. Technically, they should be drawn to her face here. However, life doesn't always work out 100% perfectly. But the reason why I think this golden rectangle composition is interesting is that you could see her head still kind of falls here, and also the diagonals and the proportions of the frame actually work out quite well. Other examples where I think this works quite well is this picture here is pretty good. So obviously there's different ways you could draw the diagonals. So let's assume we're going to draw the diagonal from this time the opposite way. And once again, you could see here, we've created the 90-degree perpendicular marks here. And getting rid of this, you could essentially see this entire, the entire background area here. It's essentially this off-kilter diagonal composition. And the reason why I like these off-kilter diagonal compositions is that it makes the images much more edgy, and it makes a lot more dynamism in the pictures here. Once again, look in the composition here. You could even see how her eye falls on this point here, and her lips fall on this point here. And generally with this golden rectangle composition, don't think of it as something you must always look for when you're out shooting on the streets. Rather see it as a tool for analyzing your compositions after the fact. And another way you guys could think about this is assuming, once again, you just have a simple frame. So to draw it from the bottom left corner to the top right corner here, then create the perpendicular line here. So this is where things actually get interesting, is that you could take the top here and then draw a line going straight down. You see this intersecting point here. You draw it going straight to the right. This intersecting point here goes straight up. And this intersecting point here going straight here. So now you could see how our composition is being subdivided into these little interesting boxes here. So even if you think about how to proportion your frame, assuming this left space here, create a new layer, this space here, and then now ultimately you could create a division of the frame up here. So this is just another way you could visualize how you could divide a frame. So applied to the real world, so let's say you're out shooting on the streets. Try to divide your frame according to these quadrants here. So let's say, assuming this red outline here is your frame. So imagine that as your frame. So I'm gonna make this disappear again. So now we've had the after image of the images here. So when you're out shooting on the streets, keep this kind of general grid in mind. So in the far left, you have quadrant 1, the top right quadrant 2, and the bottom right quadrant 3. And if you just go on the Googles, search Eric Kim Saigon unorthodox composition. I think there's actually a picture. Oops. Okay, sorry. I don't actually have a good example, but everything in life is a work in progress. So essentially when you're framing things in your frame, try to make sure that you could section the framing here. Actually, let me... Saigon composition. Okay, deconstructed Saigon Eric Kim compositions. All right, cool. So once again, we see this subdivision of the frame. In different ways you guys could apply this is like this photograph I shot here in Saigon. So I'm gonna import the image. So you could see this image here is subdivided into 3 parts of the frame. So 1, 2, and 3. Whereas in the previous example, you saw the sections 2 and 3 were flipped upside down. But still, if you just consider this composition, that corner there, top right corner here, bottom right corner here. Oops. Now this actually looks pretty nice in terms of the proportions. So if I created this into a, just lower the opacity, oops, merge this down, merge this down. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. Now you can see this composition on the left side of the frame, how this entire section is divided into section 1, the top right corner 2, and then the bottom right corner 3. Or what you could just do is keep this normal and just play with opacity to essentially see this composition here is indeed sectioned off into 3 sections here. So the practical tip I have is when you're out shooting in the streets, kind of try to keep that grid on top of your mind to frame and compose the scene. So once again, you could see it here. Most vividly displayed. Oops. So this is section 1, 2, and 3. So try to divide your frame like that. So you could see the points 2 and 3 here. The section up on 2 actually has more space than the space on 3, whereas in this version, here's space 1, space 2, and space 3. Here space 3 doesn't have as much space as space 2 as we have it in this example here. So once again, guys, I know this presentation's all over the place. I'm still practicing using Procreate and trying to explain composition. To be quite frank, it's really complicated to explain composition, but treat these as just little working experiments. Once again, when you're out shooting on the streets, that's your frame. Keep this little diagram on top of your mind when you're out shooting, and it'll kind of help inspire you. Let's see, what's another good example? Oh, this would be fun. So let's see. Okay, cool. So here, let's say I'm photographing this camera and trying to create a diagonal composition that follows the golden triangle. So you can see here in the bottom left corner, I'm essentially trying to create a diagonal from the bottom left corner all the way up to the top right corner. So let's say if I photographed it like this, took a look at that image, sending that to Procreate. Okay, cool. So make the background black. So you could see I tried to compose this where you have this diagonal line coming from the bottom left edge of this frame. And if I drew the composition, and the golden triangle also works in different ways. So yeah, about like yay. So once again, we have the 90-degree angles here to lower the opacity of this image here. Ideally, if I change the composition, I'd have the camera in this spot here too. Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh, with this Procreate app. So yeah, if you guys are interested in the Procreate app, just go to the App Store, search Procreate, and I'm sure you guys all have an iPad sitting around somewhere. Yeah, this Procreate app, I've been using this to analyze a lot of my compositions. And also, if you guys are curious, I'm currently using the tools, let's see what this is called, AirServer, and using Camtasia to record. All right, so thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hopefully more coherent videos to come. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.